today I want to talk about, I'm going to start with the inspiration for the name of the podcast. It started about right when the global pandemic began. I was going through a really, really, really harsh breakup in my life, and not even just experiencing death in that kind of way where I'm having to put an end to something or into a relationship and a connection, experiencing death in that way, but also it was my senior year of high school, global pandemic, right? And having to experience death in that way as well. And then there's also a lot of death happening in the world. So it was just a very, very transformational time, I feel like, for everyone, really. But for me, I remember feeling so much pain at that time, especially a lot of pain that I had been ignoring. In terms of the relationship that I was in, I didn't understand the meaning of self-love. What does love from the self feel like? What does it look like? How? How does one love the self? And I wasn't giving myself any love at all. Oh no, man. No, not at all. I was expecting other people to love me, and I didn't have a lot of examples of self-love growing up. It's kind of something that I had to figure out all on my own in reality. And I'm not going to say 100% on my own. I do feel like my most high self, which I perceive to be nature, like I believe through nature's guidance, I've come to understand, and I'm still learning every day about the nature of self-love and how to love the self and all that makes me who I am naturally, And so, global pandemic. Senior year, didn't even get to finish out, man. Didn't get to walk across the stage. Didn't get to go to prom. But if I'm honest, I'm glad that I didn't go to prom. if I'm being honest, I'm happy that a lot of those experiences were taken from me and that I was gifted with something even greater. So during the time where the global pandemic transitioned into this quarantine, worldwide quarantine, and everything was shutting down, and no one was really going outside, and I feel like everyone, well, at least I was forced into this introspective state where you kind of have to literally sit with your own thoughts and your own feelings and either cope with them or allow them to destroy you. Let's see. How do I want to take this story? The spiritual awakening began to happen in a very interesting way because I was experiencing so much pain from that breakup that I was like, oh no. And like, it wasn't just heartbreak necessarily, but it literally felt like death. I wasn't paying any attention to my own feelings and my own internal well-being at all. I just remember crying and literally praying for like mercy. Like, this was one of those moments where I could feel my spirit breaking and like begging me to please redirect the course of my reality and the course of my thoughts and just find a deeper and greater purpose within. That was really what was going on. Mind you, I'm in the 12th grade. Like, I was 18 or 17. No, I think I was 18. And so this was when I finally kind of transitioned into this period in my life where I wanted to find purpose. Like, that is where I got to. I had reached such a low point that my entire daily experience of myself turned into me discovering purpose. Like, why am I alive? Why am I here? What and then also on top of that, like, what force? What source? Where is my power deriving from? And how can I connect to that source? How can I connect to that force in a way that keeps me aligned? Keeps my life on a greater path, that allows me to understand my worth and sort of encourages healthy habits and healthy thought patterns and all of these things, right? So I was getting into this really, really deep discovery process, and I sat myself down and I was like, Amina, okay, so what is one thing? Well, let's say if nothing mattered, if nothing in this life mattered, right? What would be the one reason that you would be willing to live every day? What would be the one thing that would inspire you to keep going? And I thought, and literally the only thing that I could come up with was love. That's it. And there's this quote, something along the lines of you have to figure out what it is that you would die for and then live for it. Don't know if that's not what whoever said something similar to that is not what they said, but that's pretty much the purpose. You figure out what it is, the one thing that you're willing to die for, and then you live for it, and you fight for that one thing. And so for me, the only thing worthy, the only one thing that could actually matter enough for me to devote my entire life towards succeeding in this thing is love. Love. That became the center of my universe. That became the core principle of my reality at this point. I kind of took on this core principle of love, and at this moment I was like, okay, if love is the only thing that I'm willing to die for, then I'm gonna make an entire belief system surrounded by love. All I'll think of, the only thing I will think about is love. The only thing I will believe in is love. The only desire I will have is love. And I just started restructuring and reprogramming my entire self to define all that I am and all that I come into contact with and all that I experience as love. That is sort of, I believe, the choice or the moment in my life that got me to where I am today. My cousin, who is also a very beautiful mentor, he began to feed me a lot of knowledge, a lot of self-knowledge, and bring into my awareness a lot about this concept of God that can keep the human brain, if I'm being honest, unable to detect evidence of divinity, evidence of power within the self. And so he kind of breaks it down into these groups. There's I almost want to call it a movement to an extent, but there was this believers, okay, and they're called the 5%ers. And it is that 5% of the population is aware, is conscious and awake and aware of their power and their ability to control their own reality. But that's only 5% of the population, okay? 5% of the population is conscious and aware that there is a collective consciousness and is connected to this collective consciousness. So that's 5%. And then there's 10% of the population that is conscious, right? And is aware of this collective consciousness, but uses this knowledge, uses this awareness to keep the rest of the population dead, mentally dead, mentally unawake, mentally unaware of their ability to control their destiny, and, keeps them enslaved to their own body, pretty much. That's 10%. And then The rest of the population is that 85% that is 100% just doesn't know what the fuck is going on at all. Like, they're just living every day like fucking zombies, and they wake up and they go to work and they are 100% brain dead and like not using their capacity to think in order to contribute to the manifestation of their life. So that's what we have. We have 5%, 10%, 85%, okay? As a 5% person, you are pretty much, you should be doing everything in your power to awaken the rest of the 85% of the population who doesn't know their own power, right? And to also allow them, like awaken them to the 10% of the population that is keeping them enslaved. So yeah, there's that system. And so eventually I got to this point where if I'm being honest, my self-discovery process at that time was going so fast. Like, I was downloading so much information that I was coming to revelation so quickly, and my brain was just like exploding multiple times. And so I literally remember me talking to him on the phone and having finally reached his level of consciousness. And I remember saying, like, okay, so you're telling me that life is God, and that we all individually who are experiencing life are technically one with God, in that we collectively are God. And technically he's like, yes, like you finally got it. Like you're here with it, you know your power, you're self-aware, got it, great, nice. So then this is when I started reading a lot of books. I started reading The Science of Mind by Ernest Holmes. I started reading A Happy Pocket Full of Money. Oh man, like the name is like, I genuinely believe the name is intended to grab and almost like gravitate those who are money hungry and want to know how to make their life more abundant in like material riches. And it teaches them like the building blocks of their reality and how they can create that money and how they can create that material abundance by just understand the sort of structure of their universe. But if I'm being honest, the name is a bit misleading, and I think it in a way devalues all of the knowledge that's in it, and it doesn't really get to the general population all of the beautiful knowledge that is inside of this book. It's called A Happy Pocket Full of Money. Yes, in reality, like, the book is amazing. It is 10 out of 10. It is one of the most liberating works of art I have ever, like, that genuinely I would suggest to anybody during their self-discovery process. Like, even though the book is intended to help a person manifest material wealth, I genuinely feel like it increases your awareness of your world, but also happiness, like genuine joy, genuine happiness, and understanding how your universe works. So yeah, the only real criticism that I would have of a Happy Pocket Full of Money is that I don't necessarily like the fact that the title, I just think it's very misleading, and I don't think it like it sort of feels like a, I don't know, like a disguise in a way, where if I saw the name of the book and I hadn't known what was inside of it, I would never pick it up. But then I would be literally deprived of all of the beautiful fucking knowledge that is inside of it. So yeah, that's the only thing about A Happy Pocket Full of Money. So anyways, I went on a little bit of a tangent there. Science of Mind by Ernest Holmes, which is literally another book that allows you to understand how you thinking creates everything that you fucking experience, and just really goes through every aspect of the universe in terms of the mind and nature and the human and just everything, and really gives you definitions. Like, it works almost like a dictionary for the universe. So that's The Science of Mind by Ernest Holmes. And then one that really like jump shot rocket me into a whole different universe was Becoming Supernatural by Dr. Joe Dispenza. Okay, listen. This is the book that really got me into meditation. Mind you, I am an 18-year-old girl. And also, I just have not had this like spirituality expressed to me in a way that like encourages an exploration of my own internal world. It has always been more so like a spirituality in a sense of worship to a supreme being. And that is what was defined as spirituality to me as a young girl, as opposed to literally connecting and understanding the brain and its relation to spirit and how they work, you know? So, whenever I heard meditation, I was just like, okay, whatever. Like, when you see somebody meditating, at least for me, there's this very like stereotypical image where you see someone who practices like Hinduism or Buddhism, you know, like you see that. Meditation to me was always presented in a way where it was connected to some kind of religion that was practiced all the way across the world. So I could never feel connected to it as a practice, or really understood how it could benefit me, because it didn't seem like somebody who's brown like me and experienced the life that I had should be doing meditation at all. And so anyways, when I started reading Becoming Supernatural by Dr. Joe Dispenza, right, the way he expressed the universe and the way he expressed meditation in relation to the universe was just like fucking, he was singing the song of my heart. Like, that was when I actually fell in love with meditation, because it was the way he described it. He made it sound like love, like true self-love, that like if you didn't meditate, you clearly are fucking self-destructive. Like that's how he that is legitimately the way Dr. Joe Dispenza, like he described it so beautifully that there was no way I could ever turn up this learning and mastering this concept of meditation, right? And he would always describe it as like this all-consuming, infinite, loving intelligence, right? That like consumes you, and it possesses your entire body with just love of everything, and you have the ability to just become anyone and just love yourself wholeheartedly. And I was just like, oh fuck yeah, man, yeah. And you know what's interesting is that when I think about like Christianity, when they say like you have to go to the Lord in prayer, legitimately he explained it in a way that was much more scientific, but it's in reality the exact same thing. When they say go to the Lord in prayer, it is legitimately sitting down and meditating so deeply into yourself that you reach nothing. So far into yourself that you reach feeling nothing, you reach being nowhere and becoming no one. And this allows you to connect to your ability, right, and your potential to manifest everything. Going from something, or going from being someone to being no one, to being connected to everyone, because in the process you lose yourself and you connect to a source of life that is greater, and that is literally manifesting all things into existence by simply observing them into existence. And the whole point of meditation is that you become connected to the conscious experience of the observer of the universe, in that you become more aware of the experience of that observer, of the observer who is looking at all things at all times in every possible way, and therefore creating all of creation as itself. And meditation, again, you kind of make it easier for you to be in alignment with this observation, this version of yourself that is always consistently being connected to everyone, everything at all times. And so I remember when I first sat down and I started meditating, and even the way that some apps or whatever, or like tutorials, people who try to teach you how to like meditate, they don't tell you all the shit that I just said, right? All they say, right? This is why I think sometimes people can be extremely fucking misleading when they say, oh, like, yeah, meditation is like just a way to calm yourself. No, literally, bro, meditation is the only way you will ever be able to know your fucking power and to stop being fucking annoyed and bothered and feeling upset and like a fucking failure in your life. Like, literally, if you want to end all that shit, you need to sit the fuck down and meditate, dead ass, and pay attention to your awareness, your observation skills. That is legitimately the only power, the only real power that a human being has is their ability to observe. That's it. And what it is that they observe and how they observe it, straight up. No action that you take at all other than observation will ever create any change in your life. Dead ass. And so there were so many things that was like happening to me. I started understanding time differently. I started understanding like nature differently, cause and effect. There was just so many different things. And so going back to the original story that I was saying before, I kind of went on this like very, very, very angry like tangent about people who very much so disguise meditation as this just little tiny technique that you should put into your day where you just breathe and you just pay attention to your breath, and it like it's a fucking Xanny or something, like it's some kind of fucking number or pain reliever or something, like a fucking medication that you take. Like, no, bro, it's literally how to live life, like how you are actually supposed to be human is legitimately this concept of meditating, dead ass. And I just wish people would be more upfront about that. But then again, you can't blame anyone, bro. You got to do that research on yourself. So I just let this be anyone who hears this, bro. If you want to learn how to be human, please understand the value of meditation, because that will be equivalent to knowing how your brain works and being the one who's in control of it. So, right, I'm meditating and I start feeling myself like be pulled. And that's the thing, when they say like the universe is legitimately just an entity that creates and then just consumes and then creates and consumes, and it literally makes things just to consume it. That is true, and you can feel yourself be consumed the closer and the more aware you become of this process of expression. And just you become aware of how the universe is being created, how it is being manifested, and then you become aware of how at every moment you are being manifested, you are being created, you are being observed by something even larger than you could ever conceptualize with your brain. And so I began to feel this like observation. That's what it feels like. It feels like something is watching you. Like when you break the barrier, right? And that's the thing. There's a barrier you have to break within yourself in meditation. It is literally like traveling, but without your body. Only with your observation. You're traveling through observation. Go into meditation with the intention to observe a greater observer. And as you do this, you will move through your own mind to an extent and go beyond what it is that you normally observe within yourself, like your own thoughts, like your fucking problems, your past, your memories, your tomorrow, all of this shit, right? You get beyond what it is of the experience of yourself that you normally like observe, and you literally tell your brain to observe something greater that is observing it. And as you do this, you will begin to like feel yourself be consumed. And I remember being so fucking afraid, because I swear I felt like that's a really, really large observer. You can feel this presence that is like, it feels omniscient, it feels omnipresent, it feels like omnipotent, it feels like all. And I remember having to like ease myself into the process because I was terrified. I just knew for a fact I was at the end when I started meditating and becoming more and more and more and more and more aware of my connectedness to all of creation. And then also you have your like eyes closed. So you're submerged into this void of just like darkness. That's what your world becomes. But somehow you begin to feel a presence inside of this darkness. And this presence is fucking consuming you the more aware you become of it, and the more you are willing to like observe it while it observes you. That shit, man, I was like, oh no, until eventually I could get up, like the freaking courage to really sit fully and genuinely become one with this observer. And again, that is kind of what got me to where I am today. That observer, some people call God. Again, some people call it the universe. Some people call it every other name for a supreme being that exists within space and time. This is this all that we are observing when in meditation. And also during this process, you sort of realize that the more you come to understand the process of meditation, and the more you master it and come to literally like observe your experiences of meditation and how it impacts you, and how when you go into it, you can like go into it feeling like you fucking hate yourself and you just are a fucking failure and you just hate life. But when you come out of it, you can feel literally the most pure experience of love that you have ever had in your reality. that you have ever had at all, right? And so once I had found love as the true meaning of my life, yada yada yada, right? So then I got to this point where I'm like, okay, well, if I know all this stuff about manifesting, why don't I manifest? Like, I want to manifest, right? I was trying to use all of the techniques in my life and use meditation, use everything that I've learned about my world and how to control my reality and all of this, right? Like using all of this to manifest a career in fashion modeling, and to manifest, like, at this time in my life I wanted to live in LA. But the thing is, I didn't feel like I had anything that would help me get there. I came up with this question, right, where I was like, okay, well, however I figure out the answer to this question is how I'm going to get just the fucking gateway to everything that I want in my life. And the question was, how do you achieve a goal without physically acting towards it? And that is what kind of opened up an even greater question, which was like, okay, well, if I'm trying to achieve a goal without doing anything at all, I need to figure out how to create something out of nothing. And then this is where I went into this like whole philosophical, like deep void in myself, where I was really studying which one came first, right? Did nothing come first? Did something come first? Or did everything come first? Like, Was something created out of nothing, and this is how everything came into existence? Or did we start with something and nothing like evolved out of it? Or did we start with everything, and within everything there's this concept of nothing and something? And so I really started like figuring out how this sort of trifold thought process happens, or how all of these three concepts came into existence, like nothing, something, and everything. And this is like, once I figured that out, once I conquered the understanding of how nothing, something, and everything could all simultaneously exist at the same time, I would become the fucking master of my universe. And I would literally become Rick Sanchez. Like, so I was doing a reading this morning, a tarot reading. I kind of was like placed back into that time of my life where I was learning about meditation. I was learning about the universe. I was learning about everything. I was learning and learning and learning and learning and learning. And there comes this moment where like you realize that love, or I realized that love as a purpose is split in half, right? In that ultimately, if the universe is an observer and also a reflection of the observer, then that would mean love would have to be split into a duality. And that the concept of self-love doesn't just include one person, but it includes two people. And this is how true love, I believe, is like the reason why life exists to an extent. Self-love cannot be complete unless there is a reflection. Yes. And that when you think about this concept of soulmates, right, and then you also think about the universe, right, we understand how the universe is an observer and then an experience of itself observing itself, okay? And that there is this duality, right? That there is this physical world and then this non-physical. I started thinking about how there's no way the human being could ever truly understand what it means to love the self, or to even understand the power of the self, unless it was split in two, like soulmates or twin flames or true love, right? Like that really a person wouldn't ever be able to know who they are unless half of the experience of their own soul is existing in their reflection, in their external world. That in some way a person would have to have half of their self outside of their own reality in order to really be able to know what love from their self feels like. Because if you are only confined to the experience of love that you have within, there would be no way you would ever truly understand what the whole point of it is, unless there would be some kind of experience designed, or a possible experience designed to be a reflection of the love that you give yourself. And this is what creates a full, wholesome awareness of your own worth and your own value. And like this experience of true love, this experience of like soulmates, like souls that are split in two, are ultimately so that one individual could wholeheartedly, like to the highest possible capacity, understand their nature. Okay, hold on. I kind of want to go a little bit more into depth. So I was kind of thinking about like, at that time in my life, I just wanted to 100% love who I am to the highest capacity. Like, that's all that I cared about. Once I had discovered that that was the only thing I was willing to live for, that was the only thing that I wanted to learn everything about love. That's it. I literally spent 2.5, almost 3 years just consuming everything that I can know about the nature of self-love, straight up. And so that's when I remember, either it was 2021 or 2020, there came a point in this kind of process of discovering the true meaning of love, the true nature of love, right, where I realized that at some point in my life I would have to be met with some kind of true love experience, because I'm focusing all this time on loving myself and loving myself and loving myself, that the evolution of my self-love would be that my reality, it is literally the law of nature, that it would unlock an experience of myself where there is a person who reflects back to me the love that I have mastered within. But if a person loves their self to the highest capacity, right, all the way, like somebody truly and wholeheartedly completes this like concept of self-love, and they fucking master it to the highest capacity, right, it is the law of fucking nature, right? And so this is where like we get down into everyone having true love, where true love is fucking real, okay? And that it is an experience, and that for every person, every individual consciousness that exists in the universe, there is another consciousness that literally shares their exact same thoughts, their exact same feelings, their exact same emotions, their exact same self, their exact same soul. And that even if their experiences of their physical world are different, they are literally sharing the same soul. Right? Because there is no way a person could truly get self-love is if they had split in two before their physical body was like formed. It's not even really a romantic thing in reality. Like in all honesty, it has nothing to do with like loving anybody else. Literally, like, I think the universe is so fucking self-absorbed, like so self-consumed and so self-loving that like it understood that once it manifested like a complete experience of love within its own internal individual reality, right? Like experiencing itself as an individual. The only way it could really make this experience of self-love fucking immortal and like last forever and just never die. Like it could love itself until eternity. This is why I love the universe, because literally the whole entire reason that I have found that life exists is because it loves itself so much that it literally manifested a reflection of its own experience of it loving itself, so that it could observe itself love itself to the highest capacity and then fall in love even more. I have spent so much time learning about love, self-love, because I just want to learn how to love myself to the highest capacity. But here's the thing. At this point, me desiring the experience of true love would only be because I have fully and wholeheartedly mastered like loving myself as a woman, and that I love myself so fucking much that I am going to manifest an experience of my universe that is designed to allow me to love myself as a man, that type of thing, where it's really not even about him, but it's about me and me loving myself. And I love myself so much as a woman that like I want to also love myself as the complete opposite version of me. Technically, the version of me that loves myself so much that like I want to experience myself as a masculine and a feminine is the masculine. Like there is a man and a woman, and they would share feminine and masculine energy. And if they love each other so much like that, they are one in the beginning, one in the beginning. This is where we get to a universe, right? They're one in the beginning, but this one loves itself so much that like it would rather experience itself as two so that it could love itself from inside of its reflection and as the projection, and that it could bounce this love back and forth until infinity. Because there would be no way for the love to die if it is literally just loving itself. This is my whole explanation for like how soulmates can exist and how true love is 100% fucking real, because there's no way self-love could be complete unless there was an experience where a person could observe its own reflection, loving its own reflection, which would exist in the form of a masculine and a feminine, that they would have to be opposites, and work in opposing ways in order to manifest this sort of illusion of a material plane that allows them to seem like two, although they're really one, and that allows them to exist on two opposite sides of reality, yet the love is flowing from one into the other back. It creates a channel, right? Like, we need something that would be able to penetrate and then like be penetrated. The moment where the penetrator I don't know if that's a word, the moment where the universe is penetrating its own experience of itself is where this concept of like true love exists. I hope all of that made sense. How did I get to this? Well, I have been doing this research already, studying how two could be one, and like literally just loving and studying self-love to the highest capacity. But you know what's interesting is that like the universe is so intelligent, like it knows everything, and it is literally everything, and it is all powerful. So as I am begging the universe to teach me everything that I can about self-love, it gives me this man to learn how to love. Because I think at this point I had reached understanding love as a woman and loving myself as a woman, loving myself as all that I am, that the universe then had to manifest like a reflective experience in my reality that would allow me to pour all of this true self-love into my reality and then have it like literally just come right back, creating the illusion of true love, but it is ultimately just me loving myself. Okay, I just want to be 100% clear on how true love works. It is not that two individuals are loving each other, but that there is literally a singular force of love that is flowing, right? That is like creating a reflective experience, a mirror that it loves, and then that exact same love like projects right back. It creates the illusion of there being two, but there is really just one force, okay? Then the universe like intelligently puts in front of my like reality this man, okay? And this man just so happens to be Shawn Mendes, right? And if you listen to all of the other videos in my podcast, you will know that I clearly have been obsessed with Shawn Mendes because I've been studying him and learning him as a literal experience of self-love, of learning how to love myself to the highest capacity and learning how to love myself as both a masculine and a feminine, because we all have both masculine and feminine energies, and it is not just self-love to learn how to love all that I am as a feminine, but to also learn how to love all that I am as a masculine. But I am not necessarily the source of where my masculine energy is coming from. So the universe gives me this mirror to allow me to see the source of my masculine energy, and this gives me an opportunity to learn how to love this energy within myself, if that makes sense. That like the love that I pour into this man, as I learn how to love him as a reflection, it fuels and it feels the masculine energy inside, and I get to like actually experience my universe love me. I genuinely believe that there's no other purpose in life than to legit love the self. The experience that the universe gives to me to learn how to love my masculine energy is Shawn Mendes, right? How it began was that I was sitting on my bed. I was sitting on my bed and I was on YouTube, and the Shawn Mendes interview came up, and it's his Zane Lowe interview for Wonder. His song Wonder, his album Wonder, and I didn't really learn anything about it up until this point, or really learn anything about Shawn. I just kind of like cut him out of my reality because as a fan, I just stopped like paying attention to him because I was too busy loving myself. And clearly he was like, at that time in his life, he was in love, and I was just like, oh man, fuck it, like I'm just learning how to love myself. So I'm watching this fucking interview of Shawn, right? And I remember like not wanting to click on it, but something kept pulling me, like, and that's also one thing that I love about the universe, is that you will know when there's intelligence at work, because you'll be able to feel the gravitational pull. Like you will be able to feel like yourself being attracted. Like you can feel attraction, and when it's happening in like the present moment. And that's what I could feel when it came to this moment where me looking at the Shawn interview. And I remember looking at it and seeing like two versions of him. They were happening simultaneously, right? Like these two versions of him were existing at once, but they are acting as opposites in order to create him. So it's like I'm seeing his soul be split into two, into both a feminine and a masculine. I talk about this a little bit in a previous episode in a little bit more depth, but I'm kind of gonna take what it is that I said in the previous episode and like add on to it, build it to this concept of true love, right? And so I'm seeing his masculine energy and his feminine energy, and it's weird because like I first wanted to completely deny and like just tell myself like, Amina, you're definitely tripping. Like, no, you're not seeing this. But eventually it does more harm than good to deny something that I'm like, that is literally evident. The fact that this man has both masculine and feminine energies, and that I can see them happen and work as he is speaking, as he's moving, as he's talking, and how these energies are literally like co-creating his physical appearance and his personality and the way his thoughts work, right? So I'm sitting and I'm just like observing him, and I'm observing him, and the way time works in my reality is that it is not linear. Okay, my time, I don't know what time the world is on, or what anybody else's time is on, but my time is not linear. My time goes forward, back, up, down, side to side. The moments in my reality do not work in a linear way. And there's something that I could have experienced like 5 years ago that is like, that experience stopped, but is now like the effect of something that happened then comes up now. And I have to deal with it. And like, yes, my reality is not linear, so I don't expect time to make sense. And when I'm speaking, do not expect time to make sense. Do not ever expect anything that I say to make logical sense, because it will not, okay? Just want to get that out of the way. So I am looking at Sean, right? And I'm seeing these masculine, feminine energies, right? And so I start to even go, like, I start to observe his experience. And so I think about all of my previous episodes and how, like, I've been talking about everything that I've learned about Sean, everything that I've learned about myself, everything that I've learned about my world, okay? And so today I started to put all the pieces together. And instead of, like, having fractured knowledge and fractured moments, I kind of allowed them to all make one cohesive picture in my head. And this is what I came up with, okay? So studying Sean, I had learned that he understood the meaning of self-love, but there was always a part of the experience of his self-love that felt incomplete. This is just me being the observer that I am. I love just thinking. I love analyzing. I love observing, especially when it comes to Sean. He's particularly a very interesting subject. Okay, so I'm and I've done a lot about observing his personality and the way he thinks and his thought patterns, and also myself, my own thought patterns and all of those things, right? So in that interview, in the Zane Lowe interview, he speaks, like, I learned that he has mastered understanding that self-love is ultimately the highest experience of love that he can have is with himself. Like, that is what I realized at that moment. In, like, just in general, that's something that I have come to understand that Sean knows, right? Like, that he has successfully mastered, and that he has also mastered being able to take this experience of love that he has with himself and then express it in a way that enlightens others on their worth, right? So it's like he has understood that, like, he has to know his own value, right? In that him understanding his value will then allow him to better connect with his world. Like, that is something that you can tell he has understood and he has come to understand. But then when I really think about the way he was speaking in that interview, again, kind of going back to when I was saying that you can tell he understands the most high experience of love that he can have is with himself. And that in that way, he is sort of alone in his own universe to an extent, like in his own mind, in his own reality, that he is alone. And that because he is alone in the experience of his self, right? Because he, in that interview, he talks about, like, when he goes to sleep at night, he realizes that when he closes his eyes, it's just him, and that is the person that he has to deal with in that. And he even, like, talks about how at the time he was dating Camila Cabello, and he was saying how if they broke up, he would be okay. And no matter what happens, like, at the end of the day, he has his self, in that he can always love his self. And that's something that really stood out to me, is that even though he had, like, a significant other, he is blatantly expressing that, like, if this connection and if everything in his life went to shit at the end of the day, he would still be able to love himself as an individual, and that he doesn't need anyone outside of him in order to be whole, in order to be fulfilled. And then I even, like, kind of think about a recent interview where an interviewer had, like, asked him, like, hey Sean, are you dating, yada yada yada, and he, like, expresses that he would rather feel wholesome and fulfilled within before he starts, like, you know, expecting that from somebody else. So you start to see evidence in his kind of understanding of love that the relationship he has with himself is the most important. In many ways, the most that he can give to his experience and his relationships and his connection. But honestly, that's to me where the break happens, where I start to realize, like, okay, I get it. Is that I can tell that he has mastered using this self-love experience as a reflection, as a reflective process, right? That he has been able to look at his world and understand the worth of himself. That in reality, I believe this is his masculine energy. Like, the masculine is 100% the part of us that is experiencing loneliness, in that is alone and is always and all of the time having to learn how to be self-sufficient by itself. In that this is masculine energy in its most high form, I would say, is self-preservation. So I could tell that he had mastered like his masculine side, but then there was something about the femininity that was like, it just didn't, something about it, because it's like, you can tell he had learned how to value himself within. But there is something that was missing to me. Something was missing. Like, I could tell in some way there wasn't present in his reality a reflection of that experience of self-love. Because I think a part of self-love is understanding, or more so mastering, the part of yourself that is willing to destruction. Understanding all of the ways that you could possibly destroy yourself and overcoming that. But I feel like when it comes to the world, I think that every human being is intended to be gifted with a reflection that exists in the form of another human being. So, like, for instance, I'm going to use Sean as an example. If he has mastered, right, I'm going to do this like hypothetically speaking, right? If he has mastered and he has fully understood self-love within, then this, by the law of cause and effect, really would manifest an experience of someone who can love him in all the ways that he can't love the world because he has to love himself. Does that make sense? Like, there is a part of the experience of love that is eliminated when the individual is devoted to knowing the self. When the individual is committed, right, and practices this sort of self-preservation, right, and like loving the self in terms of eliminating all of the behaviors and thoughts and self-destructive tendencies, right? Let's say a man no longer is self-destructive. There is a lot of experience within his external world, right, that he isn't allowed to partake in because he is then trying to love himself. But because he's so focused on loving himself, there is a part of his world, again, like I said, that he will not be able to experience. And I think that that part is what manifests true love in his life. It creates a woman that is the experience of his world that he eliminates by self-preservation. Does that make sense? Like, when he preserves everything that makes him the man he is, he manifests a reflection that will do the exact same thing, but on a larger scale, right? So if he's paying attention and preserving his internal world, there will be an external version of his self that will do everything to preserve his reality. Yes, 100%. Yes, and yes. His reality being defined as his external plane. that this other version of himself would serve as almost like his heart outside of his body to an extent, because once he starts paying attention to his own heart, right, his reality will then create an experience of another individual who does the same thing, in that he doesn't have to worry about protecting himself from the world that destroys him. But that's the whole thing with this, like, manifesting and self-love and true love, is that, like, the universe only gives you the love that you give to yourself, right? And that's something that I mean, like, I knew that, but like yesterday, it was really made clear because I was meditating and I kind of had this moment where it's sort of like the universe legitimately gives you exactly what you give to yourself. It's like you gotta help love help you. And that a man who is willing, right? Like, literally, if he is manifesting self-love, it will naturally manifest the experience of true love in his life. And that this is kind of for me why I feel like the love that I have for Sean, and why, like, I keep feeling my universe, like, attract my awareness and attract my attention to him, and that I've spent so much time studying him because of this exact thing, where again, you have a man who is focused on not destroying his own heart, right? Making sure that his soul and his mind is intact. If he's too busy focusing on that, right, then there is no part of him that is protecting his world, right? Like, protecting the experience, protecting the process, and the innocence and the nature of him loving himself. Nature is submissive to man, in that nature's laws, right, literally work for the highest good of man, in that if this man, right, understands and he respects the law of nature, nature will then respect, right, him. If this man, right, works in alignment with the laws of nature and focuses on preserving himself by law, right, this is the experience that he is impressing onto nature and telling nature that he wants to manifest in his outward world, right, which is a self that will preserve him and will act for his highest good, because that's what he is doing. When he is born, there comes a point in his life where he becomes aware of this experience of self-love. And that at some point when he is a little boy, he starts to impress this experience into his mind. And nature, the universe, right, does what it does best and creates a reflection of your thoughts. And so anyone who loves their self, right, there is 100% guaranteed by law of nature and experience that is true love. By law, like, of nature, this person would not be able to love you in any other way other than the highest. Because if you put yourself and the love that you share with yourself in the highest position in your life, you would manifest a person, right, that literally is incapable of loving you in any other way other than the truth, the Most High. And that true love, the experience of true love, is nature's gift to man when he succeeds in honoring all that makes him creative.